On the 8th of March 2014, a Boeing 777 departed from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, bound for Beijing Capital Airport, a 6-hour journey. At 41 minutes past midnight, 7 minutes ahead of schedule, the plane left its gate. On board were 153 Chinese, 50 Malaysians, 7 Indonesians, 6 Australians, and many more from other different countries. All 12 crew members, 2 pilots and 10 flight attendants were Malaysian citizens. This particular aircraft was a Boeing 777-200ER, registered as 9M MRO. It was 11 years old at the time. The Boeing 777, introduced in 1996, had a near impeccable safety record, suffering only 1 fatal crash before this accident. But this aircraft, loaded with 239 passengers and crew, would all but disappear without a trace, and it would leave experts scrambling for answers. Although this flight was performed frequently, there was one thing aside with this flight plan. Due to lower air traffic conditions, the plane could take a shortcut to a waypoint called Igari. Usually, planes would go to a waypoint called Betard. At the controls was 53-year-old Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah and 27-year-old Farik Abdul Hamid. Zahari had a hobby of fishing, and he was also a talented cook, as well as being one of the most experienced pilots in Malaysia. Although there is very little information about Farik's hobbies. There are multiple leading theories as to why Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared, such as exploding fruit, a hijacking, a massive electrical failure, a remote control hijacking, and a pilot suicide. While the first one seems unlikely, MH370 was indeed carrying some mangosteen, although the exact quantities are unknown. This, however, can be debunked along with the massive electrical failure, because when a search was going on in the South China Sea, when the airplane last made contact, they noticed thousands of small fishing boats, and the investigators thought to themselves, there's no way a plane could crash here and no one could notice. But also, the plane had a transponder which would relay signals back to air traffic control, and it had 3 modes: off, position only, and a mode where the position and the altitude of the plane are displayed. And when air traffic controllers were checking their radar footage from the night before, they noticed that for a split second, the plane was only displaying its position and not its altitude. This reveals that that night, someone was intentionally controlling the plane and caused it to disappear on purpose. Radar replays also show the plane turning around and flying into the Indian Ocean. This could hint at a possible hijacking, but after 9/11, planes had bulletproof doors which would keep would-be hijackers out. There is a combination lock to allow them in, but only a few people know what it is. The pilots would have also realized that hijackers were coming into the cockpit, and they would have likely sent out a mayday call. This mayday call never happened. There are also theories that the CIA did a remote control hijacking, even though they never said this. However, the transponder thing we were talking about earlier means that it had to be done manually. A digital hijacking would have made it go straight off. However, the leading theory is that Captain Zahari himself, the most experienced pilot in Malaysia, deliberately hijacked the plane as a political stunt. Then, he incapacitated all the passengers and crew by locking them into the cabin and depressurizing the plane. His oxygen mask lasts a lot longer than the cabin oxygen masks, which means he could still control the plane, whilst everyone else became hypoxic. It even said on the technical log that before Flight 370, the crew oxygen supply was topped up by Captain Zahari. Then, at around 8 AM in the morning, somewhere in the middle of the Indian Ocean, Flight 370 was slowly running out of fuel. Captain Zahari probably even killed himself by taking off his oxygen mask and leaving the plane on autopilot. But then, the right engine ran out of fuel. The autopilot tried to compensate by throttling up the left engine. But sooner or later, the left engine would flame out too. The autopilot disconnected, and the plane's speed began to drop. Along with the speed came the altitude. But as the plane slowly began to drop, it sped up. However, the altitude continued dropping. The plane started to roll to the right intensely. The speed started to increase faster and faster and faster. The plane has now pitched down to 20 degrees, and it's showing no sign of stopping. It soon reaches 30 degrees, then 35, then 40 degrees, then 45 degrees. It even starts to fly upside down, but it won't be long before it breaks the sound barrier. A few seconds later, the ghost plane impacted the water. There was no explosion on impact. The plane had not even a drop of fuel left. While a few debris have been scavenged off the coast of Africa and Australia, the main hull of the airplane has never been found, along with the flight data recorder. Maybe one day, it will be discovered, and the flight data recorder might have a few snippets of information to reveal the truth of what happened to this plane. This has been Head for Science, and I'll see you in the next video.